Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And we're back with another episode of Influencers Radio. And today's topic and guest is so near and dear to my heart because it's around the art and science. A lot of people don't put that together, the art and science of speaking. And I don't even like to use the term public speaking. That sounds so academic. But to me, to listen to a great speaker, even in the sales process or anything, to me, it's like listening to a symphony. It's music to me. And people that do it well are just, extremely special in my eyes. And there's a lot of folks out there that have some incredible knowledge that, they're not sure if speaking is the right way to do it, but there's people that have made that decision that, I think I need to get out there and speak and talk about this. And one of my favorite sayings that from when I was young, a child, I think my grandmother used to tell me that every man is my superior and that I can learn from him. Well, we can amend that clearly to or her, because today my guest is Kristin Thompson, who to me is, one of the top trainers in speaking, but I almost hate to narrow it down and put those walls around it just speaking because it's so much more than that. But as far as speaking, and not just speaking like you would, keynotes or when you see, politicians, I'm talking about speaking in a very purposeful way that generates sales, leads, revenue for your business, people that are ready to take the stage, and more. And we'll talk about that. And so, with that, I want to welcome Kristin Thompson right here to Influencers Radio. Welcome, Kristin.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
Well, I am really excited, and I love listening. You know what? I'm just waiting to get a laugh out of you. Your laugh is there. It is.
It doesn't take much. I love laughing.
that laugh is so infectious. I listen to that. If I could just have a recording of that and listen to it over and over, I don't know what it is, but
and you can. I can provide that for you.
I bet you can. You're a master of that.
I am right now.
So I want to dive into this. That's what you do. And so a lot of people, when they think about speaking, there's all different types of speaking. People think, well, I get speaking training. I go down to the morning meetings at Toastmasters. I won the Toastmasters contest, or, I'm part of the Rotary and I gave my presentation, but there's so much more. And that's why I called it the art and science. There's people that are good at speaking and, have that velvet voice and things like that. But then there's the science part that is just, you get down to being really purposeful and not perfect, but purposeful. And we'll talk about that. And that's what I think you were just brilliant at, putting that together. And there's a lot of people that have great talks, but they're not sure why they're great. And that's one thing that you are just wonderful at, is dissecting and telling people, here's why you're great at that. You should do more of that. And this may not be as great as you think it is.
Not so good. No,
I
actually think that one of the most important things you can do as someone who's maybe learning to speak, or even if you just want to up-level your results, is exactly what you just hit on, Jack, which is to pay attention to what you do well first, because that shows you kind of your natural ability and what you can amplify. And then when you add that with strategy, then you really get rocking.
Yeah. Well, that right there, I think for you to be able to identify and dissect that saves people so much time and effort and going the wrong way once they decide to speak. So I want to dive right in to some of the core mechanics of what we're talking about speaking. So let's talk about the difference between your keynote speaker, the what a lot of people think of as that speaker, and the type of speaking that you focus on.
Yeah, that's a great question, because they are two very different things. And it's not that I've never given a keynote, because I have. And if you rock your talk in the way that I teach you to, you will probably get invitations to deliver keynotes. And so they're fine. but it's a different kind of a career. So what I don't do is help people become like let's say a Les Brown or someone who is traveling around the country. You're often traveling a lot and you're giving a kind of a pre-scripted talk that is really designed to entertain the audience. So it might be the kind of talk that you give that's motivational while people are eating lunch, let's say. And then there's what I help people do, which is more package your expertise, the thing that you're so great at. You might be a financial advisor, you might be a health coach, you might be a business consultant of some kind. How do we take your knowledge and expertise and then package that into a talk that, number one, and you'll like this, Jack, positions you as an authority, which I know is a big topic here on the show, but also is structured in a specific way so that that talk doesn't just get you compliments, which is where a lot of people get stuck. Compliments are great, but even better is when you generate leads and clients and cash. So this talk that we want to really help you create for your business should become like the engine of your business, that thing that gets you highly visible and can really crank up your revenue anytime you want to.
Right. And that's one of the things that some people get distracted with compliments because, man, that feels great. I got compliment, but compliments don't buy diapers, right?
No, I tried at Toys R Us and it just did not work.
Right.
Or Babies R Us.
So turning that in and not to say the Les Brown, the motivation, because you certainly have motivation peppered in there.
Sure.
But that's what I'm talking about. The purposefulness of this, of how you do that, but the outcome could be much different and very specific, almost predictable. It seems, where people that kind of struggle with, well, I've got a good talk, but at the end, some days people rush to say, hey, how can I buy your stuff? And other days it's flat. But what you do is you have a very, a system that is very predictable in those results, that that if you do this the right way consistently, you can kind of predict what's going to happen when you're finished with your talk.
Yeah, it's true. In the beginning, the most common place where people get stuck, as I was just saying, is that place of compliments where, you can, I think with just a little bit of practice, get pretty comfortable in front of audiences. Not that you're not going to be nervous, because I still get nervous. And I think nerves are good. They keep you energized and enlivened, and that's fine. But if you're giving a talk and at the end, all you're getting is people patting you on the back, what you're missing is a place, two-pronged, kind of two things that you're missing. One is you're not walking out with any cash. So yes, you can't pay your bills with compliments, but you're also missing the ability to serve people at a higher level, which is really important to me and to my clients, which is if all they did was listen to you and then walk back home or go back to work and then just go back to life the way it was, you didn't really have an impact. But if you can get people to take a step further with you, buy your book or buy your coaching program or attend your live event or whatever your next step would be where they can work with you deeper, that's where you really, as an expert, have the opportunity to serve them at a higher level and give them that deep transformation that probably is not going to happen in the half hour or 45 minutes of your initial meeting during your talk, right?
Yeah. So let's dig into that. Almost beyond the talk, beyond the stage, because, there's a lot of great training out there, speaker training that does go into, the mechanics and really gets deep into it. But a lot of times people go through that and then they think, well, I got my talk, I'm good at, but then what? Right. And so, you work with people certainly about, what their talk is about, what to say, but then it's about, you get very specific about who they're going to say it to and how they get in front of those people to say it to, which is something that does put together a full package if you're going to speak. Just being able to speak, if you want to do it in front of the mirror or to your family, they get kind of tired of it, I've learned.
It only takes you so far.
Exactly. They know your gig. They get tired of hearing it, right? So let's assume that people have their talk. It's, that's just a given. Okay. You get people their talk and how to do it. Let's talk about going beyond that. Well, actually, you know what? I want to step back just a minute because there is some people that have a great talk, but they think that it's great because they give a ton of information.
Yes.
Right? They give these details and then I call it sometimes death by PowerPoint.
Yes.
And because they want everything to be perfect and every line, and if they miss something, they're gonna hate themselves. But one of the things that I say, I passion over perfection is the only way that I can concisely describe it. Talk about that, and how people can get over that passion over perfection. Because I know that if there were no PowerPoints, there were no screen, if given a microphone and a stage, you're going to talk for 2 or 3 days and not lose a person.
Yeah, I've gotten really good at, my joke, especially when I first started speaking around Portland, and I would do it really every day I had the chance. I'd go give a talk, and I really got the structure of the talk, that science part down, like you said, with those consistent results so well that I would joke, just give me an audience and a little space to stand and maybe a glass of water and I'm good to go. I don't care if it's a room of 5 people or 50 or 500 or 5,000. I really just need an audience and a place to stand. I don't need a microphone. I don't need a PowerPoint, and I can convert a room. And that's really what I want to share with people and what I give my clients. And there's a couple of different things that go into that. One is definitely the structure of the talk, and we can talk about that in a moment. We definitely go into that on day 1 at the Rise Live event, which is that balance of how much should you teach and how much do you need to hold back? And, how do you really craft that talk in the right way so that it creates a craving? But what you were just hitting on, Jack, is this idea of people really being comfortable being themselves in front of the room. That I know is definitely something that I'm really good at, because it's one of the biggest compliments that I get, I think, is, you're really you on the stage. Like, as goofy as I am right now is how I am at the dinner table, is how I will be at the Rise Live event. I'm pretty casual. I like to make jokes. That's who you're going to get. And that's not how I started out in front of rooms. And it's not how most people start. So usually when we're giving a presentation or a talk, unfortunately, it's like all these layers of the onion start closing up around us, and it can suck the personality out of your ear, out of your brain, and we become very formal. And a lot of traditional presentation training kind of does that to us as well, where we become so self-conscious of our hand gestures and counting the ums and the ahs that we actually miss the true point of speaking. And connection is truly the thing that will convert a room. Like, if everything else failed, if you connected with the room, they're going to be interested in getting more from you. So the only way you can really connect is what you were hitting on, Jack, which is that passion over perfection. You don't need to worry about whether you say or ah, and we don't need to coordinate every hand gesture as if it were a dance. We don't need to really do any of that. But what we do need to do is bring forward your unique personality and to get you comfortable in front of the audience. And one of the best ways to do that is to remember that the content that you're sharing is truly separate from you once you're sharing it with an audience. It's like, yes, you crafted your 5-step system or your system for helping people lose weight or make more money or save more money or whatever it is you love to do. It was your creation. But it's my belief that once you share that with the world, it becomes this product or program that's separate from you. And it's separate from you because it's information coming through you, and then it goes into the audience's hands, and then they get to implement it and use it. So if you can get excited about the content that you're sharing and just set aside that you were the one who put the talk together and just see it for the transformation that it provides and how passionate you are about helping people experience that transformation, then you can get as excited about your own content as if it were somebody else's. Does that make sense?
You know what? It not only makes sense, but I want to put a spotlight on this because, that's one of the most powerful concepts that I've ever heard around speaking, because a lot of people, when they speak, they feel that they have to sell themselves. They have to convince the audience that, they're buying them. And yes, to a certain extent they are, but the way that you put that is that you are passionate about what it is you do, what it is you're teaching. And if someone automatically or tell me if this is the right way of thinking about this, sure, but if they took their talk out of there and then thought of something that they are extremely passionate about, whether it's some charity, whether it's, for me, it would be chocolate,
Sure.
and if they replace their talk with something that is outside of them, that they have nothing to do with, that they're passionate about, the way that they tell a friend, you've got to check this out. You've got to hear this
pizza,
band.
bro.
Exactly. And then just put your product in there, that you're that passionate, feel that way about your product, and separate yourself. And that's what I want you to kind of expand on, because you say it so eloquently that it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, oh my, that changes so much about, people's perception about that. So how is it that you get people to make that mind shift? And tell me some of the results you've seen, because that's got to be a huge V8 moment once people are able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, you bring up a great point. Part of it is that I think that part of why I even figured that out, by the way, is because, I'm actually a pretty humble person, and most people that I work with are, right? You're a humble guy. I'm a humble gal. But if you're humble on stage, and then you're never excited about anything, and you're squishing everything down and tamping it down, it's pretty hard to expect anybody to get more excited than you are, right? Because you're the leader at the front of the room. So I know for me, I was a little perplexed in the beginning, because when my background was in media sales, for instance, and I was really a great media salesperson, top performer, won awards, great, fantastic, because I was selling somebody else's product. That felt easy. Then the mid step was I worked for a personal development company, and I would speak and sell for them. Again, I thought their program was great. Really easy to get excited. So now I branch out to do my own talks, and I started to get jammed up. And again, as you said, this is a really common stumbling block for people. So the truth is, if you think of your content as separate from you, it becomes easier. And the reality is that that's the truth. In other words, I did not invent the idea of talking about your business. I did not. Nobody start crying or jump out a window, but I know I'm breaking big news here. But that I didn't invent that. It's just a really good idea. So I can be excited about that idea. And what I believe is I'm just the messenger of this really good idea. And I happen to be really good at explaining it, and I can help you get great results. And that's what I believe I was put here to do. And everybody listening is a messenger of something that they're really good at. So if you think of yourself as the messenger, but you're not the message is just in the universe, you just happen to be one of the best people to share that message with people, then it becomes a real game changer. And the second thing I'll say on that topic to kind of how do you get there piece is, if you think about the person you are in your living room, like let's say, Jack, you were hanging out with your family or your best buds, and maybe you're having your chocolate or some pizza, whatever you like to eat. And it's a small group. So you're totally comfortable. You're in your own living room, and you're telling a story, and you just have that whole room laughing, and they're totally with you. We've all had that moment, right? So the thing for you to remember is that is the person you want to be on stage, on your podcast, in interviews, and anything you see that is pulling you away from being that person is what you want to remove. And so when you do that, you become really engaging and truly you. And being truly you, whoever that is, there's no right or wrong answer to who you are, what your personality is, but bringing that person forward on stage is naturally attractive, because the truth is that is hard for the average person to do. So if you're willing to do it because you're more interested in serving your room than you are in, let's say, being cool or being perceived a certain way, if you put the audience's needs before your own, and you say, I'm a messenger of a super hot message, right? I can't wait to share it with this audience because it's going to change their lives. Then everything breaks wide open and you become a really engaging speaker. So what happens when you do that? Well, Jen Fitzgerald is one of my clients, and you'll, Jack, have the chance to meet her at the Rise Live event, and anybody else who comes will too. She came to me. She had a business. It was generating a little bit of income, but she definitely wanted to expand it. She wanted to expand it using speaking, but she had no experience. So I think that's a really good example for your listeners, if we use that as kind of our working model, right? So we built her a talk that was designed really with the right amount of information. So it was going to teach the audience some stuff about building her program and product is all about relationship building for people in network marketing. So the talk is crafted on those points. It taught the audience some stuff. It also held some stuff back so they would be craving more. And we worked on some very specific things she was going to do during her talk that would engage the audience. That's that personality piece that you and I were just talking about. So we had some very specific things, actions she was going to take to get the audience kind of playing with her and interacting with her, and a really simple offer. So she spoke at a multi-level marketing at one of their big events. She was the last speaker on the third day of the conference. Can you think of a worse time to speak, Jack? Okay, not the greatest spot to be speaking in. And she's never given a talk on a stage before. There's now 1,000 people in the audience. 1,000 for your first talk ever. So that is a pretty challenging situation in terms of like a setup for somebody when it's their first time out. And to boot, the guy who speaks before her is like, I know there's a word for it, but I'm not thinking of it right now, but he's just talking and talking. He goes way over time, right? He's like having so much fun being a rock star that he doesn't shut up, and he starts eating into her talk time. So my point being that her setup for her talk was horrible. It was like a bad time slot. The guy went over before her. Nobody checked her slides or sound checked her, so her slides were kind of wonky. It was really a challenging situation, but nonetheless, she went up. She stuck to her outline for her talk, so she knew exactly where she was leading people. She knew exactly how she was going to engage and enliven that audience. She had a clear offer, and she had a way for people to say yes, which, by the way, is what you want. You want a talk that's designed to sell. You need a very clear offer, and then you need a way for people to say yes right then and there in the room. Don't send people to a URL to visit later, right? You got to close them right then and there. So not only did Jen close a ton of people that day, but she did some follow-up sequences after the event. Within 30 days between what she closed in the room and what she closed in her follow-up, she added 1,600 new sales of her program.
Oh, my.
1,600. Boom. Hashtag boom.
No kidding.
And that's somebody who I promise you'll meet her at the event. She had never made an offer from the stage before in her life.
Well, that's what it comes down to, right? Monetizing what you're doing. You can be good at it. You can have fun at it, but monetizing. I remember my dad used to always tell me, son, you do what you love to do, talk about what you love to talk, and you'll make $1 million. Well, you know what? So far, no one's paid me to eat or sleep, which are some of my favorite things. Yes. So you got to have the right thing. But when we talk about monetizing, because we're talking about, 1,600 sales, but you have 1 hour talks, and you have clients that you've put together and worked with them on 1 hour talks that have generated, $10, $30, $50,000 paydays. Yeah. Yes. And that doesn't mean that people walk up to you afterwards and hand you cash and say, great talk. You have to have something behind that talk. And that's where I think when I mentioned earlier that a lot of people are left with, well, then what?
Yes.
The then what is, they're not going to pay you for the words that came out of your mouth. They're going to pay you because you have created a tremendous appetite to want more of what you were talking about. How do you take care of that then what? To be able to turn that great talk into those $10,000, $50,000 paydays, or, like she did the 1,600. Yeah. What do you have behind that creates that?
Yeah, it's a great question because you're right. You can give a great talk, but if you just get pats on the back, that's not going to help you grow your business. So you have to have a very specific offer. And, for most of my clients and for especially people maybe just getting started, you want to have a nice entry level offer. And I'll tell you why, because if you step to the front of the room, and likely it would be the first time you ever met this audience, right? You maybe go to a chamber of commerce, maybe you go to a business association, maybe a live event for your niche, a live event for authors or a live event for coaches or consultants of a certain kind. You're standing in front of an audience of a couple hundred people or whatever the number is, and they've never met you before. And you probably have somewhere between 30 minutes and 60 minutes to rock your talk, as I like to say. So that's not that much time to get to know somebody. So sometimes the mistake that I see people make is they do make an offer. They offer their coaching or they offer a product or program that they sell, but they kind of go for like their big offer. So maybe you speak for 30 minutes and now you're offering your $30,000 mastermind. I'm not saying it's not possible, because it is. You can sell that way, but it probably should not be your main offer, because it's kind of like going on a first date and asking somebody to marry you, right? It's like, it's kind of creepy. It's a little bit much. It's a little much to be like, nice to meet you, join my mastermind. So what is really easy though, and where you can make, it's like a lot of people love to talk high ticket right now. That's like a hot, like a buzzword and a hot topic, and high ticket's great. And it has a great place in everybody's business. But, if you go give a talk and you just met someone for the first time and you make a nice solid entry level offer, you can close a ton of people in that room. I'll give you an example. Like I spoke at somebody's event a while back. It was maybe a year or two ago. And it was her first time hosting a multi-day event. She had 100 people in the room. I flew out there, was on the East Coast, and I gave an hour talk. I'd never met the audience before. I spoke on the first day of her event in the afternoon, after lunch. It's just somebody to liven up the room after lunch. But out of those 100 people, 40 people said yes. And they bought my entry-level product, which was a couple $100s. So it generated, I think, somewhere around $35,000 just in that hour. And wow. Then, one person out of that group said, yeah, I like your entry-level product and I want to do that, but I really want a VIP day where I can just sit down with you and have you map out my talk. Okay, well, that was another $7,000. And then another woman was in the audience who'd already been through the entry-level program. And she said, I've already been through that program. I actually want to sign up for your coaching program. And so now I had a private, now start doing that math, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So the truth is that you want to have an offer, and that an entry-level offer, which I define as somewhere around $300 to maybe $1,000, something in that range, makes it really easy for you to get the majority of the room to say yes. You're not looking for everybody, but you want all of the people in the room who really need you to say yes, because now not only have you made a wave of income and new clients, but all of them are now potential clients for your higher level programs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not great with the digits, but when you talk about the math, if you would have just gone straight for your VIP day selling that, you would have made $7,000. Maybe.
That's right. Maybe.
But when you do a lower, that entry level offer, one, you get the opportunity to obviously have a bigger payday, but you also have the opportunity to help a great many, more amount of people that may not be prepared or ready for that.
And some of them will rise up after they've gone through your entry level program and they've gotten to know you, and now they get your brilliance because they went through your 1-day workshop, or they went through your 6-week series, or they had even maybe a private consultation with you. That entry level offer is going to be different depending upon who's listening right now. But the point is that gives them a chance to become a paying customer and to be transformed by whatever it is you do in a way that hopefully now they're a raving fan. And we know that probably 20% of those people who said yes to your entry level offer are going to want to move up into something deeper. And so the money just keeps coming in. That one talk will not just give you income from that initial wave of that entry level offer, but all of the higher level offers that you can make later.
And I suspect you get a better quality of client out of that, because people kind of sometimes self-qualify themselves as they're moving up that chain, and you get a quality client that you have the higher expectation of success with what you're doing. I mean, it makes complete sense. One thing I want to make sure that we don't overlook is, we've used a lot of examples of stage, speaking from the stage, getting on stage and talking, but clearly with today's technology, and just like people are listening to us now, you have webinars, you have teleseminars, you have podcasts. And while each one of those is obviously a medium to communicate, sometimes they may be monetized in different ways, or your delivery may be a little bit different. You talked about how you could sell this right there in the room where people buy it there. But there's also, I guess, some other ways to monetize your talks that go beyond for the people that maybe didn't immediately buy. But also, so let's talk about that, about transposing or taking your talk and being able to adjust it if necessary for the webinars, teleseminars, podcast, and then if there's any kind of slight or subtle differences in the way that you monetize those?
Yeah, that's a great question that, I've really become known for catapulting my business and my income without doing the same thing to my schedule, which is not always easy to do. But, I'm in the office usually 3 days a week. And I really started my business partially because I was having a baby and having a son. And I really wanted to spend as much time with him as I wanted to do in my business. And because of that, I'm a really big fan of what I would call a multi-platform approach. And it's why on the third day of the Rise Live event, we're talking specifically about different platforms, because speaking from the stage is great. It's where you're going to, first off, probably have the most fun because when you're live in front of a room, it's just one of the most enlivening, adrenaline rushes that I know. It's really where I get my fix. That being said, a lot of people listening right now probably don't want to spend their life on the road. And that was definitely my decision. And a lot of the people who are in my mastermind program or even in my mid-level coaching program, they're family people too, or they just have other passions and they don't want to live their life out of a suitcase. So it is important to know, number one, that you can have this one rock and talk that we create that's crafted and designed to sell. And then we can repurpose that talk for different platforms so that, number one, you're not constantly rewriting new talks all year, because that's a big mistake people are making. That takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time, and also makes it harder for you to kind of get known for that one thing that you do really well. So we're going to stick with this one well-crafted talk, and then we're going to repurpose that talk for different platforms, because it's a really effective strategy to go out and talk live, maybe once a quarter, which is about what I do. I'll go once a quarter. I'll go fly. I'll speak at somebody's event. I'll have a blast. I'll create a wave of new clients and new leads and cash. But then I'm at home. So when I'm at home, doing things like podcasts and webinars can really fill in the gap. It can keep your momentum going, and you can create big paydays there as well. I have one webinar I've been doing this year that's generated, over 6 figures for our business already this year. And that fills in the gaps when I'm hanging out at home in my PJs, because I like lazy paydays too.
They are convenient, aren't they?
They are. And I mean, look, I don't want to always be home in my pajamas, because again, when I go out and speak live, that is, in my experience and in the experience of my clients, is where you're going to get your highest paying, most loyal customers and even loyal partners. Like Jack, you and I meet at the Rise event. We might come up with some great idea of something we want to do together later this year or next year, because we're going to be live in the room together. And that is a very special thing, and it creates a deeper relationship with people. So you want to do that, but you can't do it all the time. So webinars are a great alternative. I like webinars because they have a visual element. So it really holds people's attention in a world where attention is hard to keep. So we got to keep it lively. And the shift is that when you're speaking live, and we'll go into these strategies on day 2 at the Rise, but when you're making a pitch live in a room, your offer is generally going to be the last thing that you're going to do before you wrap up your talk. So you're going to leave your offer pretty much to the end when you're speaking live from the stage, because you want that big rush of people standing up and running to the back of the room to buy your product or program. And so that's a great format when you're speaking live. But on a webinar, it's harder to keep people's attention, right? Because they can click over to Facebook or get distracted by email. There's other things that could pull them away. So in a webinar format, we could use your same talk, but we would move up your pitch and make it before your last teaching point. So let's say I have 3 key things that I need to share in my webinar. I'm going to introduce it. I'm going to teach you point 1. I'm going to teach you point 2. I'm going to pitch. And then I'm going to teach you my last point so that you stay connected and you stay online with me.
Because it's much easier for people to get up and do something and not pay attention when nobody's watching, right?
It is. I always joke, you have to be pretty horrible for people to get up and walk out on your talk live in person, right? Because you'd have to be pretty horrible. It's considered so rude that they might not stay totally plugged in, but people are not just going to get up out of their seats and walk out of your talk. That's probably not going to happen. But on a webinar, even if you're good, there's just so much coming at people between texts and, cell phones and Facebook and Twitter. So you have to work a little harder. So webinars are great because of that, because you can make them interactive and you can have visual elements, and then moving up your offer to that right before your last teaching point, or having even a special bonus at the end of your talk. And those are some of the more specific things that we'll go into at the event. But those things help keep people plugged in and stay with you so that they don't click off and start paying attention to something else.
Right. And, I want to get into the event here if for a bit, if you don't mind, because, you mentioned something about being at the event, just the dynamic of the event, and not just as a speaker, but as a participant. I can tell you that live events have probably been some of the most profitable things that I've ever done. And sometimes it's not even because what has occurred on stage. It may be because of who I meet there or what happens, in the lobby or things like that. But you get so many moments that just sink in when you're watching the presentations, and it's, people's ability to take those little nuggets and apply that to their business, but then go out, because that's the one thing most people, when they're living their day-to-day lives, their neighbor, the person checking them out at the grocery store, the person next to them on the treadmill at the gym, don't even conceive the realm of this kind of world or the passion that we have around what we're doing. And to be around other people that have that much passion and get what you're doing, that energy, just does some tremendous things. And I've seen just some magic happen when people leave events and form those relationships, or just realize that this is real. They see it happening with other people. So the Rise Live event, and I'm certainly going to be there, looking forward to that. That's just what this whole thing is just built around. One, you rock your talk, right? I know it's hard. That might not be the most congruent branding for someone as subtle and low key as yourself.
I know, if the purple stripes in my hair didn't give it away.
Yeah. It's
We're going to, a couple things that you touched on that I want to point out. Number one, yes, because I'm a goofball, we have a rockin' good time. So the feedback on the event, which we also hosted last year, was that it was the funnest event most people had ever been to, but also very deep, actionable content. So there's no fluff, there's no filler, there's no BS. That's what I promise you, because that's just kind of how I roll. And you're probably going to laugh a lot, and we're going to have a cocktail party, and there's a lip sync contest. There's all kinds of fun that we have as well. But the thing that you said, Jack, that is so brilliant, and I'm so glad you brought it to my mind, is that sometimes live events are part of what make whatever the next level is for you real. And it is probably the most important role that live events have played in my own career, because I wanted to create in the beginning. I just wanted to hit 6 figures 3 days a week, but I didn't really have a model. I mean, like you said, my poor neighbor, manages a bank and works like 14 hours a day and probably isn't even making 6 figures and is working her butt off, right? And that's what most of our neighbors are doing, but they're probably not models for how to make 6 figures or multiple 6 figures or 7 figures in just the way you want to. And so I know for me, I thought that the things I wanted and the dreams that I had for my own business were crazy and probably impossible until I started going to live events and making it, I call it creating a new normal. That's what I call it for my clients. You got to create a new normal, which means it's great to be friends with all the people on your block who are working 9-to-5 jobs and slaving away, but you really want to create a tribe of people who are rolling the way you want to roll, who are living the life you want to live, or hopefully even ahead of you, so that it can become normal for you to do 6 figures in 3 days or generate $50,000 in an hour. Like, those things sound insane, and yet they're happening, right? So you've got to go out and connect. You are definitely going to meet people at live events, whether it's mine or somebody else's. I can still remember one of the first events I ever went to. I'm still friends with some of those people today, and some of them went on to become clients. So some of the most amazing friendships that you're going to form, partnerships that you're going to form, clients that you're going to meet, and definitely the deepest level of transformation happens when you get live in the room. Again, I just shared how I love a lazy payday like the next person. I'm wearing some sweats and flip-flops right now. Don't tell anybody.
What a coincidence. Yeah.
We'll pretend I'm wearing like a Gucci outfit or something, but I'm really in Victoria's Secret sweats and flip-flops. So I love a good comfy day at home, but I'm telling you, the big shifts, even in my own business, they always came when I got out of my own environment, was in a fresh environment with new people who were rocking their business at a big level. And that's when change really happens.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's so hard to even quantify it, to explain the experience. And it's just something folks need to do to get out. And I love that, creating a new normal. I think one of the easiest ways to launch yourself into creating that new normal is to take yourself out of your environment and put yourself and surround yourself with people that get it, that have that same, when you realize you're not the only one, that there's other folks like you.
There's other weirdos just like you.
It is. It's a tremendous experience. So this is, how many live events? The Rise Live. What is it? Is this the second one?
This is the second year. So last year was our first year. It was an amazing event. We're hosting it again. It's coming up October 16th through the 18th. And I know you and Brian are going to be there. We've got Carrie Murphy's going to be helping people rock their talk with video. So we've got lots of experts we're bringing in, especially for that third day when we talk about all the different platforms you're going to want to leverage. But more importantly, we've broken the content into 3 focuses to really serve people at a high level. So first, we're going to help everybody rock your talk. So that's about creating that right talk, understanding talk structure, that science part that you were hitting on, Jack, making sure that you know how to get the gigs, because you're right, having a talk is great, but if you don't have anywhere to deliver it, it's not that helpful. So we're going to cover all of that in day 1. How do you get the gigs? How do you craft that talk? And how do you make sure it's structured to sell? And how do you do all that in a way that's really consistent with your brand and your personality? And then we have a big party. We'll just say that. There's a big party on the first night. And then we come back for day 2, and then we talk about, great, now I've got my talk, I got my brand personality. How do I make money from it? So that's where we'll dive more into, how do you close the room, closing strategy? How do you make hot offers, and how do you create a really juicy offer that people are dying to say yes to? And then what are all the different ways you can monetize your message so that you can add 6-figure streams of revenue, whether it's you want to hit 6 figures or you want to go multiple or mid or 7? How can you use a multiple streams of income approach so that you've got leveraged income coming into your business? And then day 3, we help you rock more platforms. So that's where experts like Brian and Jack and Carrie and all these great speakers that we've brought on board are going to say, great, now that you have your talk and you know how to close the room and you know how you're going to make money, where do you want to take this talk and where do you need to show up so you get highly visible? Because that's where you can really confuse your competitors. You can come from the sleeper, right? It's like out of nowhere, you can become the person who was nobody one day to being the most visible person in an instant if you have the right strategy.
Yeah, well, I think that to pack it into 3 days, and it's packed in, like you said, there's no fluff around that. So how can people find out more about that, find out more about you and what you're doing? Because you have a phenomenal podcast with some great stuff, and but also to the event. I booked my flight. I'm ready, and I'm looking forward to party night too.
I know we're going to have a great time all around. I'm so excited that you're coming. So anybody who wants to check out the event can go to theriseliveevent.com, and theriseliveevent.com will tell you all about the event. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. You can check out the Hyatt Regency, which is where we're going to be right downtown. You can look at all of the hot content, all of the amazing guests. It's all on that site.
For that, and if you happen to be listening to this after October 15th, 16th, 2014, guess what? I bet there's another one coming up.
We do it once a year, but you can also just visit our main site, which is Speak, Serve, Grow, anytime you want. And that's where you'll find lots of free content. You'll find the podcast. And so if the event already passed, just go to speakservegrow.com and connect with me there. We've got lots of hot content, blogs, webinars, and you can click all those fun links and get exactly what you need.
Fantastic. Kristin, you are an influencer. That's why I'm thrilled to have you on today, and incredible information, great content. You have some nuggets there that, just are really, really powerful that give some great, what I call the V8 moments. So I want to thank you for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, there you have it. Check it out, speakservegrow.com, and also the riseliveevent.com to join Kristin live, and I'll be there. So definitely say hi. Until next time, Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.